In a distant forest, Wind Hashira Sanemi Shinazugawa and Serpent Hashira Obanai Iguro carefully approach an abandoned castle. Obanai believes the castle has been forgotten since the Meiji Restoration, as they suspect a woman from a nearby village has been kidnapped. Despite the Demon Slayer Corps being on high alert, this is now the second disappearance, and Sanemi scolds the Demon Slayer Corps for their lack of skill in preventing the kidnapping. As they watch from above, they see a demon carrying the missing woman. They give chase and enter the castle. However, they realize too late that the castle is filled with numerous demons. One pounces on a demon slayer, but it is swiftly killed by Obanai, while Sanemi beheads another. The demons begin to attack, but the Hashira are able to defeat the demons, although the weaker demon slayers struggle to fight back. Obanai orders them to retreat while he and Sanemi continue the mission. The demon slayer, however, insists on staying to help, but Sanemi calls them a hindrance and reaffirms the order for them to leave. As the weaker demon slayers leave, Obanai and Sanemi proceed further into the castle. Recognizing their lack of skill, Obanai expresses disappointment at their inability to prevent the demon attacks, and Sanemi agrees that their skills are insufficient. Obanai shares his suspicions with Sanemi, expressing that the demons are unusually gathering in a swarm. They are puzzled as they have not seen this behavior before. Suddenly they hear the woman pleading for help, prompting Sanemi to leap onto an upper floor. They discover a huge horde of demons, and Sanemi reacts quickly, using wind breathing, second form, claws purifying wind to swiftly eliminate them. Seeing the growing number of demons converging on Sanemi, Obanai swiftly intervenes, performing serpent breathing, fifth form, slithering serpent, decapitating the enemies in one fluid movement. Sanemi becomes irritated at Obanai's assistance, and they both spot the kidnapper holding the woman. The demon begins to flee as he realizes that the Hashira are pursuing him. Sanemi demands his surrender as he ruthlessly kills the demons in his path. Sanemi and Obanai follow the kidnapper outside the castle and are suddenly surrounded by more demons. Sanemi allows Obanai to take the lead as he heads for the woman. With incredible agility, Sanemi leaps onto the rooftop while Obanai uses serpent breathing, third form, coil choke, leaping off the edge to swiftly eliminate the demons. The scene continues with Sanemi cornering the kidnapper and discovering that lesser demons are surrounding him. The demon attempts to attack, but Sanemi swiftly responds by unleashing wind breathing, fourth form, rising dust storm, killing all the demons and drenching himself in their blood. The kidnapper then abruptly gives up by tossing the woman off the roof, but Obanai swiftly intervenes and catches her, saving her from danger. Sanemi and Obanai then pursue the demon as it frantically flees back within the castle. Upon jumping inside, they are taken aback by the immense size and complexity of the space, revealing an endless expanse of wooden halls and rooms bathed in lamplight. However, the vastness takes a dramatic turn as the castle's infinity collapses, causing Sanemi and Obanai to plummet deep into its depths. Sanemi attempts to strike the kidnapper, but to his surprise, he only pierces the ground as the dimensional space crumbles and vanishes. The landscape once again transitions to a peaceful countryside, where Kanaotsuyuri travels by cart. The puller of the cart politely inquires if he should drop her off at the crossroads, to which she politely declines and prepares to continue her journey. Her destination is the Butterfly Mansion, where she is welcomed by familiar faces, including Kyo Teruchi, Naho Takada, and Sumi Nakahara. They greet her with smiles and excitement, clearly happy to see her. As if on cue, Kanao locks eyes with Shinobu Kocho, who stands nearby, a warm smile on her face. Without any words needing to be exchanged, they both understand that Kanao has returned. Shinobu acknowledges that the attack on the swordsmith village was exactly as described, attributing the success to the efforts of Muichiro, Mitsuri, Tanjiro, and more. The significance of Nezuko's immunity to sunlight has not been missed by Shinobu, who recognizes the pivotal role it plays in future developments. Shinobu then reveals that Muzan Kibutsuji is now actively seeking Nezuko, hoping to acquire her immunity to sunlight. An emergency Hashira meeting has been convened, and it is time to discuss the developments. Before departing, Shinobu entrusts Nezuko's care to Kanao, surprising her with the responsibility. Despite her surprise, Shinobu exudes confidence in Kanao's abilities, expressing trust in her. Tanjiro, still recuperating, engages in a conversation with Goto. Goto informs Tanjiro about the impending evacuation of the swordsmith village, and mentions that the swordsmiths are working diligently to facilitate the shift. Goto expresses amazement at the foresight of Kagaya Ubuyashiki, as the Corps has created hidden villages in the past to ensure the safety of the swordsmiths following attacks. Goto then becomes concerned about Tanjiro's rapid eating, contemplating his appetite after his recent ordeal. Tanjiro explains that Mitsuri too has already begun to dine. Goto inquires about whether it is true that both the love and Mist Hashira were asleep for 2 days, and Tanjiro nods in affirmation. Goto notices that Tanjiro with an exceptional appetite seems to be morphing into a hashira in more ways than one. With curiosity, he inquires about Nezuko, prompting Tanjiro to explain her newfound immunity to sunlight, though the implications of her transformation remain uncertain, leaving room for exploration. Goto, believing it to be Shinobu who is examining Nezuko, is corrected by Tanjiro, who reveals that it is in fact Tamayo providing care and observation. Goto shows surprise at the revelation about Tamayo, and he asks Tanjiro to elaborate. Tanjiro attempts to respond, but suddenly chokes on his food, causing Goto to playfully chastise him for eating too quickly. Goto shares information about the heightened alert state the Corps maintains due to the recent developments regarding Nezuko's immunity to sunlight. He mentions that the Corps is taking extra precautions to ensure the safety of those involved, and is on high alert. At the emergency meeting, the remaining Hashira convene, and both Sanemi and Obanai join them. However, Obanai offers an apology for their tardiness, which is met by Gyome Himejima's commendation. Sanemi expresses irritation at never having the chance to face the upper ranks himself, while Obanai inquires about Mitsuri and Muichiro's physical condition. Mitsuri joyfully reports that she is doing fine and is happy to hear his concern, while Muichiro responds that, although improved, he is not yet fully recovered. Gyome adds that the loss of more Hashira would place the Corps in danger, and he is gladdened they survived after exterminating the upper ranks. Shinobu then mentions that their wounds have healed at an unusually fast rate. As Giyu Tomioka ponders if Kagaya will speak on the new developments, Amane, Kagaya's wife, and their children enter the room, announcing Kagaya's health has deteriorated to the point where he can no longer address them personally. The Hashira are taken aback but bow in response, with Gyome praying for Kagaya's extended life and Amane's strength to endure. She expresses gratitude for Gyome's words and addresses the news of a demon immune to sunlight being found, warning of Muzan Kibutsuji's heightened focus on capturing Nezuko. She then turns her attention to Mitsuri and Muichiro, acknowledging the appearance of mysterious marks during their struggles. Amane inquires if they can explain how to induce these marks, stating that in the Sengoku period, the first breathing-style users who nearly defeating Muzan bore a mark akin to demonic patterns. Sanemi admits he has never heard of such marks before, while Amane notes that many have puzzled over the marks' absence in them. Information is elusive and scarce, with only one account existing in the personal notes of a demon slayer from that era. The revelation about the mysterious mark piques the curiosity of the Hashira, particularly Giyu. The explanation reveals that the mysterious marks appear on one individual, and a resonation takes place, causing the mark to manifest on those around them. Tanjiro is the first known person to have received the mark in the current era, but he struggles to provide a clear explanation of its origin. Amane, hoping for clarity, turns to Mitsuri and Muichiro, seeking their insights. Upon being put on the spot, Mitsuri, previously admiring Amane's beauty, refocuses her attention, but her explanation lacks clarity, consisting of vague gestures and onomatopoeia, perplexing the Ubuyashiki family and the Hashira. Feeling embarrassed, the love Hashira apologizes and wishes she could crawl into a hole, acknowledging her inability to provide a clear explanation. Muichiro then intervenes, noting that upon reflection he can recall several significant details. He suggests that if certain conditions are met, the manifestation of these marks is possible. During his previous battle he was poisoned and paralyzed, but upon witnessing a boy risking his life to save him, a sense of rage overwhelmed him, and his memories were restored. Muichiro attributes this transformation to his heart rate surpassing 200 beats per minute and his body temperature exceeding 39 AC. Shinobu inquires if he was even able to move in such dire circumstances. Muichiro believes that reaching the brink of despair and surviving is the determining factor between manifesting the mark and not. Amane questions how he could know his exact body temperature, leading Muichiro to explain that he received medical attention and had a reading that mirrored the battlefield's conditions. Sanemi is initially skeptical about these conditions' simplicity, causing Giyu to silently express his envy, leaving Sanemi enraged when questioned about his thoughts. Shinobu highlights the importance of awakening these marks, and Gyome reassures Amane that they will succeed. However, Amane adds final condition about the marks. Those who possess them must accept them. Upon hearing this, the Hashira express shock, realizing the significance and gravity of the mark's implications. The atmosphere in the room remains tense, with Gyome expressing concern about what consequences will arise due to the recently revealed caveat related to the mysterious marks. Giyu announces his intention to leave the meeting, but Sanemi demands his presence, insisting that they need to discuss their individual responsibilities. Giyu coolly responds that it does not concern them as individuals, leading Obanai to accuse him of shirking his duties as a hashira and gaining an advantage in training. Shinobu attempts to reason with him, but Giyu simply remarks that he is not like them, which ignites anger within Sanemi. Sanemi recalls Giyu's previous words, taking offense and asking if he is looking down on them. Mitsuri tries to defuse the situation, but Giyu continues walking towards the door, prompting Sanemi to grab his shoulder in an attempt to stop him. Gyome intervenes by clapping loudly, creating a resounding impact that silences the room. The stone hashira then orders everyone to sit and unveils a proposal he has for them. Goto, one of the Kakushi staff, approaches Tanjiro and inquires about the whereabouts of Nezuko, the three younger girls, and Aoi. Tanjiro explains that since no one is requiring medical attention, they have been spending time playing with Nezuko and teaching her to talk again. Goto notes that all is well until the arrival of Zenitsu Agatsuma, as the demon slayer arrives at the butterfly mansion. The girls call out to the others that Zenitsu has returned, and Sumi commends him for completing his mission. However, Zenitsu instead wonders if they came to welcome him back. He admits that his mission was tough, but he pushed through under the belief that they would miss him if he died. The girls deny missing him if he had died, but Sumi mentions being happy that he returned alive, causing Zenitsu to sheepishly express gratitude. Aoi arrives and commends him for his mission. Behind the gate, Nezuko appears and greets Zenitsu, causing him to shout with excitement at seeing her again. Goto inquires about Inosuke's whereabouts, but Tanjiro, having seen him in the morning, remains uncertain. He notes that Inosuke has been teaching Nezuko to say his name, to which Tanjiro is surprised. He asks Goto for more dango, causing the Kakushi's frustration. Hotaru suddenly enters the room, panting heavily and uncharacteristically quiet, holding out his newly acquired Nichiren katana for Tanjiro. Tanjiro is astonished to discover that Kyojuro Rengoku's tsuba has been fitted onto the blade, causing his eyes to well up with tears. Goto offers Hotaru a seat and suggests Tanjiro examine the blade, which he unsheathes to reveal its distinctive pattern. Tanjiro praises the sword's quality and assumes its previous owner must have been a powerful swordsman. He notices the kanji for slay etched on the blade, and Hotaru explains that the sword was likely created with the goal of eliminating all demons. The swordsmith explains that the sword was made before the Corps introduced ranks, hence the inscription "Destroyer of Demons" is reserved for the hashira. Tanjiro asks why he couldn't see the pattern on the blade earlier, and Hotaru irritably replies that it was because it had only reached the first stage of polishing when it was taken from him. Despite his injuries, he is in considerable pain and annoyed that he must start from scratch. Goto chimes in, noting that Tanjiro's injuries seem more severe than Hotaru's. Hotaru snaps back, threatening to kill Goto. In response, Hotaru demands Tanjiro brings him Mitarashi Dango until his death, which Tanjiro complies with. Tanjiro adds that despite being in pain, Hotaru was actually calmer than usual when he left the room. Goto observes that Hotaru's personality is quite different in person than the rumors suggest. Genya intervenes, asking if they could be quieter, as he is irritated by the noise. However, just as the discussion continues, Inosuke suddenly crashes through the window of the ward, loudly exclaiming in excitement. Goto warns Inosuke about Shinobu after he breaks the window, causing Genya to cover his ears and grumble about his misfortune. Inosuke claims that joint strengthening training is about to begin, but when Tanjiro asks for more information, he admits that he doesn't know what it entails. The Hashira discuss Gyome's proposal of hashira training as the meeting progresses into the night. Sanemi mentions that the dates and timings still need to be determined, and Gyome believes that the training should begin in 3 days. He states that time is against them, and they have no knowledge of Muzan's plans for the future, so they should get prepared. Obanai points out that when the demons start attacking again, they will not be prepared. Shinobu then asks if they should expect demon attacks throughout the training, Gyome explains that since the attack on the swordsmith village, there has been a significant decrease in demon activity. Until then, the Hashira had only dedicated time to training their Sugukos and fulfilling their duties. But now they must train the entire corps. One by one, the Hashira acknowledge and agree with him, and when Obanai asks if they alone will be enough, Gyome suggests bringing the retired Hashira to assist, which the remaining Hashira do not object to. Shinobu then brings up Gyu's absence as the last issue that needs to be addressed. Zenitsu complains to Tanjiro about having to return to training, despite having just completed a mission. Tanjiro is enthusiastic about the upcoming Hashira training, but his friend strongly disagrees, considering it horrible, hellish, and believes that whomever came up with it should perish. Tanjiro assures him that sparring with superiors expedites self-improvement, only to have Zenitsu angrily bite his forehead while yelling that they are no longer friends due to Tanjiro's optimism about the training. Zenitsu informs Tanjiro that he must train now, implying that the latter is only optimistic because he is currently in bed, recovering. Tanjiro calls out to Zenitsu and expresses gratitude for his thunder-breathing advice, as it significantly aided him in the battle against Hontengu. However, Zenitsu misinterprets this, thinking that Tanjiro is expressing helplessness without him. Despite this, Tanjiro thanks him and says goodbye, watching as Zenitsu walks away with a bright smile. Tengen Uzui berates a group of Demon Slayer Corps members, criticizing their fitness level and demanding they speed up as if they are being attacked by demons. Several of them soon succumb to exhaustion, irritating Tengen even further. He strikes one of them with a wooden sword, while commenting that the active Hashira's training will be far more strenuous. As Tengen observes the exhausted trainees sprawled on the ground, he is joined by his 3 wives, who offer onigiri and miso. Makio calls out to the trainees, signaling the lunch, prompting them to rush for food. Some trainees, however, remain on the ground, too fatigued to move. Tengen sips his miso, addressing the exhausted trainees and informing them that the difficulty facing pale in comparison to what lies ahead. Suma inquires about the other stages, and Tengen elucidates that following his training, it is Muichiro's high-speed movement training, followed by Mitsuri's flexibility training. He adds that Obanai's training aims to enhance enemies' limitless striking training, and Gyome's focuses on strengthening muscles. However, Tengen expresses a desire to train with everything he can give, but he leaves the planning to the Hashira instead. Sanemi lands a powerful blow, knocking several of the trainees into the air. He realizes that his efforts won't successfully elevate his temperature if his adversaries are too fragile. In Mitsuri's stage, the trainees are paralyzed with fear as she demonstrates her remarkable strength by stretching one of them. In his stage, Obanai criticizes the trainees as he effortlessly knocks them down, guiding them to perceive where their opponents will strike. In Muichiro's stage, a trainee faces considerable difficulty in defending himself from the missed Hashira, as the Hashira points out numerous openings in his stance. Standing beneath a relentless flood, the trainees in Gyome's stage struggle to maintain their equilibrium. Several of them collapse and drift downstream as they are overcome by exhaustion, while Gyome beseeches them to give their all, for the sake of Kagaya, the fallen demon slayers, and the ones still alive. Tanjiro is perusing a book in bed when his Kasugai crow pecks at the window. He opens the window but is pecked on the head instead. The crow presents him with a letter from Kagaya. Tanjiro reads it and is stunned to learn that Gyu is not participating in Hashira training. Amane is tending to Kagaya while Tanjiro reads the letter. She informs him that the Hashira have started training the corps members in preparation for the battle against Muzan. She adds that his children carry his will and have formed connections with his emotions, driven to act with the ambition to defeat Muzan. Kagaya quietly calls out for Amane, and as she takes his hand, he expresses gratitude for everything she has done, causing her to tear up and express her pleasure in serving him. A hidden house in the forests surrounding a distant town, concealed by Yushiro's talismans, stands unnoticed. Tamayo is in the midst of writing in her journals when she hears something at her window. A Kasugai crow greets her and introduces himself as the messenger of Kagaya Ubuyashiki. The crow commends her for hiding so effectively, as Kagaya had become bedridden during the period he had been searching for her. Tamayo questions how he managed to find her, and the crow responds by explaining that Kagaya had analyzed the previous owner of the house and analyzed Yushiro's blood demon art. The crow adds that he posed no threat, as being a mere crow allowed him to navigate undetected. Moreover, The crow reassured her that he harbored no intentions to harm them. Tamayo inquires about the crow's intentions and whether Kaguya is attempting to deceive her. The crow then elucidates that within the Demon Slayer Corps resides a young woman who also possesses knowledge of demon physiology and pharmacology, seeking Tamayo's alliance to aid in examining Nezuko and defeating Muzan. The crow extends an invitation for her to visit the Ubuyashiki residence. Shocked by the proposal, Tamayo inquires about the improbability of a demon being admitted to the Corps headquarters. Yushiro is cleaning the bookshelves when he experiences a premonition and urgently rushes to speak to Tamayo. A Kasugai crow representing Kaguya Ubuyashiki greets her. She expresses suspicion about Kaguya's intentions and worries for Yushiro. Her concerns are assuaged when the crow reassures her, stating that Yushiro is upstairs, who accidentally falls down a flight of stairs while trying to reach her. The crow informs her that a young woman in the Corps also possesses knowledge about demons and pharmacology, and the Ubuyashikis desire her assistance in examining Nezuko and defeating Muzan. He invites Tamayo to visit the residence of the Ubuyashikis, leaving her astounded by the invitation to join the Demon Slayer Corps. The crow flies away, hopeful for a positive response from her. Yushiro enters the room to find her closing the window. He mistakenly believes they have been discovered and prepares for their escape. However, Tamayo clarifies that something significant is afoot, possibly even before Nezuko acquired immunity to the sun, as she reminisces about a particular moment in her past. Yushiro, in disbelief, listens as Tamayo announces their intention to leave the house, but not for the same reason they have previously fled. Realizing her research must be expedited, she asks for Yushiro's support and asserts that this will be the final time they relocate. Shocked by her request, Yushiro listens as Tamayo explains that they will be traveling to the headquarters of the Demon Slayer Corps. In his bed, Tanjiro reads a letter from Kaguya, addressing his well-being. The Oyakata reveals that he is no longer able to move and expresses the desire to speak with Giyu. Acknowledging the importance of unity in this critical juncture, he requests Tanjiro to relay his wishes to the water hashira. Tanjiro resolutes himself to fulfill Kaguya's request. Leaving the butterfly mansion, he encounters Aoi outside, tending to her sweeping. She inquires about his destination, and upon his response of attending hashira training, she asks if he is on his way to speak with someone. Despite Aoi's initial inability to answer, Tanjiro seeks advice on how to express to someone who isolates themselves that they are not alone. While uncertain of the correct approach, Aoi mentions that even with the best intent, she would prefer to be left alone. Tanjiro confirms his imminent departure, prompting Aoi to ask if he is meeting only one person, to which he affirms. She departs to retrieve something, leaving Tanjiro to contemplate the challenging task lying ahead. Upon her return, Aoi offers Tanjiro a bag of onigiri for himself and the person he is meeting. Tanjiro reaches Giyu's home and begins calling out from the entrance, questioning if anyone is inside. Sitting quietly within, Giyu overhears Tanjiro's voice and doubts whether he heard correctly when the door opens, revealing a perplexed Tanjiro peering into the dwelling, searching for him. Tanjiro informs Giyu of the situation at hashira training, to which he responds that he is already acquainted with the circumstances. Tanjiro implores Giyu to return to active duty and requests permission to train alongside him. However, Giyu declares that this is not permissible. Tanjiro points out that Giyu smells angry, wondering if his irritation is directed towards him. Giyu admits that he feels frustrated with Tanjiro's inability to master water breathing, having expected him to become the water hashira. Frustrated, Giyu demands Tanjiro to leave, but Tanjiro remains undeterred, determined to fulfill Kaguya's request to speak to him. Tanjiro calls out to Giyu, offering him onigiri and inviting him to eat together, believing that being fed may calm him down. When no response is received, Tanjiro places the onigiri outside the door. That morning, Giyu discovers Tanjiro lying in his home. Though Tanjiro is pleased to see the food has been eaten, Giyu ignores his pleas and walks away. Undeterred, Tanjiro relentlessly follows Giyu for several days, accompanying him in every activity, even during meals, meditation, bathing, and even toilet breaks. Overwhelmed by Tanjiro's relentless presence, Giyu finally reveals that he failed to pass final selection. He explains they had encountered each other during his year of attending the selection, with a peach-haired boy sharing a similar tragic backstory. Giyu then divulges the name of that boy, Sabito, causing Tanjiro to recollect memories of him. Giyu shares that they met when they both were 13 years old, bonding over their shared loss and loneliness. He describes Sabito as kind and a strong sense of justice. Giyu then laments that Sabito died during final selection, being the only fatality despite nearly single-handedly annihilating the mountain's demons. However, due to the rules, Giyu passed despite his injured state and Sabito's death. Overpowered by emotions, Giyu admits that he cannot accept having passed final selection without defeating a single demon, considering himself unworthy of the title. Frustrated by his weakness and inability to honor Sabito's sacrifice, Giyu angrily laments that he was not the one who should have passed. Giyu confesses that he feels undeserving of the Water Hashira title, seeing himself as inferior to the other Hashira and not fit to stand alongside them. He views himself as different and unworthy of his position in the organization, stating that Tanjiro would be better off seeking training from another Hashira. Giyu insists that the mark will never appear on him, and that Tanjiro's time spent with him is wasted, before walking away. Tanjiro is left tearing up as he reflects on Giyu's story, realizing he shares a similar pain of losing someone close and wishing it had been himself instead. He thinks back to his training on Mount Sagiri by Sabito's ghost, recalling that had the boy survived, he would be Giyu's age now and could have saved everyone at Mount Fujikasane on his own, unlike himself. Tanjiro realizes that Giyu's belief in his own inadequacy stems from comparing himself to the potential greatness of Sabito. In awe of Sabito's hypothetical achievements, Tanjiro believes that had he lived, Sabito would have been an extraordinary swordsman, adding to Giyu's sense of worthlessness and inadequacy. Tanjiro, reflecting on the death of Kyojuro Rengoku, resonates with Giyu's feeling of undeserving when someone so noble dies. He remembers Kyojiro's belief in him and acknowledges that Giyu likely pushed himself hard to become a Hashira, despite his self-doubt. Tanjiro attempts to find words to encourage Giyu, knowing he isn't in a position to critique him, but feeling compelled to speak up. He asks if Giyu will honor the legacy Sabito had entrusted to him. Giyu stops in his tracks as Tanjiro's words reach him, eliciting memories of a past moment. Recalling how Sabito had slapped him for wishing death upon himself years ago, he reflects on Sabito's lesson not to insult his sister's sacrifice. Giyu recalls his sister and Sabito's parting words, realizing he has been dishonoring their memories with his self-pity. Giyu acknowledges his immaturity in dismissing the pain of the memory of his sister and Sabito. He apologizes to them for not appreciating and living a life full of purpose that they had sacrificed themselves for, vowing to honor their legacies and not waste the gift of life they had given him. Tanjiro, witnessing Giyu's painful recollections, becomes concerned that he has inadvertently caused him further hurt by bringing them up. As Tanjiro cannot spar with Giyu yet due to his injury, he proposes an alternative to an eating contest, which he intends to use as leverage to encourage Giyu to join Hashira training. Giyu, initially reluctant, is caught off guard when Tanjiro proposes they compete in a soba eating contest. At the soba shop, as they enjoy their meal, Tanjiro mentions Shinobu's absence from the Hashira training program, prompting Giyu to inquire about her contributions. Tanjiro admits he is unaware of her specific training methods, only to find her visibly she is seen struggling to suppress her emotions, which she believes is indicative of emotional immaturity. In a moment of introspection, she implores her deceased sister, Kanae, for guidance, attempting to rationalize her difficulty in controlling her feelings. Her thoughts interrupted by Kanao's arrival, Shinobu's Tsuguko informs her that she is leaving to train with Sanemi. Surprised by Shinobu's decision not to participate in training, Kanao expresses her puzzlement. Shinobu invites her adoptive sister to sit beside her, expressing her joy at seeing her becoming more open and forthcoming about her feelings. As Shinobu reflects on her plan, she decides the time is ripe to share her intentions with Kanao. She reveals her desire to avenge her deceased sister by hunting down the demon responsible, and explains her strategy to kill it. On the mountains, Tengen urges the trainees to hasten their pace, pushing them to exceed their limits before sunset. When one trainee lags behind, Tengen pins him down with his shinai and chides him to use his limbs more forcefully, before releasing him. The following day, observing the trainees strenuously completing sit-ups, Tengen emphasizes their need to enhance their stamina and fitness for the upcoming Hashira training. He demonstrates his point by jabbing a trainee with his bamboo blade as he lies exhausted, reminding them that they won't survive Sanemi's and Misturi's rigorous sessions in their present state. Throughout the exercise program, the participants constantly acknowledge the arduous challenges they face, yet remain determined to excel, despite knowing the upcoming stages with Sanemi and Misturi will be even more demanding. As Tanjiro calls out to Tengen, the former Hashira turns his attention to him. Smiling, Tanjiro bows to Tengen and remarks on his well-being, only to be flicked by the diamond in Tengen's eye patch as a light-hearted response. Tanjiro then thanks Tengen, attributing his survival to his mentorship, before assuring him he will make every effort to succeed during the training. With every physical benchmark, Tanjiro outperforms his fellow demon slayers, leaving them bewildered by his remarkable endurance, strength, and agility. At a lunch break, Tanjiro reunites with Tengen's wives, Suma, Hinatsuru, and Makio. Grateful for their assistance in Yoshiwara, Tanjiro thanks them, to which they respond by expressing their own gratitude. As Tengen demands the trainees eat more, threatening more exercise if they don't finish their food, Makio hands Tanjiro a bowl, and Hinatsuru encourages him to eat more. Later, Tengen's wives remind the trainees to finish their food and repeat his warning of more training if they fail to do so. One trainee asks his fellow trainee if he is assigned to a night patrol that night, suggesting they switch places to avoid morning training. Overhearing their conversation, Tengen inwardly criticizes their attitude towards training. On a night patrol, the demon slayers notice a strange lull in demon activity, one remarking on the remaining uneasiness of the night. The other speculates that the demons are searching for Nezuko, a claim that prompts his partner to question if anyone could confirm it directly from demons. The first demon slayer wishes the demons could disappear, to which his partner responds by noting that demons have been active for 1,000 years. Suddenly, as the first demon slayer has his back turned, his partner vanishes without a trace, leaving him alone in the dark. Panicked, he looks around, his nervousness growing with each passing moment. Behind a corner, his partner jumps out, startling him and causing him to fall over. Angry and frightened, the first demon slayer chastises his partner for playing tricks, asking him not to repeat it. The second demon slayer apologizes as he helps him up. Suddenly, a rustling sound is heard from a dark alley. Assuming his partner is back to his pranks, the first demon slayer urges him to drop it and resume the patrol. The second complies, and together, they prepare to move on. Unaware of it, the sound comes from the eyeball marked 4, crawling on its tendrils behind them as it follows them from the shadows. In the next exercise, trainees are paired up and required to carry each other while running. Despite being partnered with someone significantly larger than himself, Tanjiro runs the fastest, leaving the rest astounded. Tengen demands they give their all, as they struggle to run. Watching on, Tengen is impressed with Tanjiro's persistence as he continues to exercise effortlessly while the other trainees tire themselves out. A trainee approaches Tanjiro and asks about his experience fighting upper-rank demons. Tanjiro candidly describes them as strong, explaining how, despite being quick to knock him down, they relentlessly attacked him the moment he got back up. This revelation leaves the trainees visibly unsettled. As Tanjiro's retelling is about to continue, the trainees ask him to stop, stating that there are worlds beyond their imagination. For the final exercise of the day, Tengen orders them to sprint to a distant mountain and return. Groaning, the trainees start the exercise, with Tengen adding that they will not get dinner if they fail to meet his time limit. While Tanjiro is warming up for the exercise, Tengen's wives approach him, expressing their belief that Tengen is gentle at heart, even if his demeanor is severe. They reveal that the former hashira didn't eat until all of the trainees returned, even searching the mountains to ensure everyone's safety. Having overheard their conversation, Tengen asserts that he would never crush the demon slayers tasked with by the Ubuyashiki family. As Tanjiro makes his run, Tengen urges him to complete it swiftly. Recalling his eating contest with Giyu, Tanjiro notes that beneath their tough exterior, the hashira are actually soft-hearted. Despite having eaten 8 trays of soba, Tanjiro requests an additional one, determined to win the contest and persuade Giyu to join hashira training. Surprisingly, Giyu also orders another helping, leaving Tanjiro shocked as he is struggling to finish his current portion. Giyu rationalizes that he does not need to join training if he wins, causing Tanjiro to become nervous at his own proposition. The chef serves their new servings, and Giyu instructs him to serve Tanjiro another one, noting that it will be his final serving. Tanjiro accepts the bet, recognizing the challenge. He struggles to consume the new soba, finding it increasingly difficult with each bite. In a secluded area, Sanemi waits for the arrival of Obanai before apologizing for the latter's lateness. Despite his tardiness, Sanemi informs Obanai that he himself had only just arrived moments prior. Sanemi then proceeds to ask about the status of Obanai's training, and the serpent Hashira responds by claiming that the demon slayers in training will not be useful in battle against the upper ranks. Sanemi concurs, acknowledging the situation as Kagaya's will. Obanai then inquires about the reason for their meeting, and Sami reveals that he had been contemplating something. This piques Obanai's interest, who assumes it relates to the castle they had witnessed before the demons suddenly vanished. Sanemi mentions that he too had been contemplating the castle's significance, speculating that it may serve as an unknown demon's hideout. However, he reveals that he has investigated the castle multiple times, only to find no answers or clues. Obanai adds that at the same time, demon activity in the surrounding city has decreased, leading Sanemi to believe that the demons are targeting Nezuko. He expresses concern about the situation, expressing his view that something ominous may be lurking ahead, but Sanemi dismisses his apprehension. Obanai reiterates that the act of training the demon slayers serves as a temporary distraction for his concerns, suggesting that the diminished demon activity is a harbinger of trouble for the core. However, Sanemi disregards these fears by asserting his determination to put an end to the current predicament. The scene transitions. Tanjiro finds himself assisting Tengen's wives with household chores in the kitchen. After helping them complete their tasks, Tanjiro is presented with a cup of gyokuro tea as a token of gratitude. Hinatsuru takes the opportunity to express her appreciation for Tanjiro's role in saving them in Yoshiwara, to which Tanjiro denies that he acted alone, attributing his effort to the collective strength of everyone involved. Remarking that Tengen still aims to fight Muzan despite his wounds, Suma adds that he calls out in his sleep, with Makio noting that he blames himself for stepping down as a hashira. Hinatsuru expresses her hope for Tanjiro to defeat Muzan and bring an end to this situation. Tanjiro assures her that he will strive to do just that. As night descends upon them, Tengen reveals a change in plans, informing the trainees that they will be subjected to a special exercise based on real combat. With great excitement, he orders them to enter the mountain before explaining the rules. In the darkened surroundings, the trainees, armed with bokutos, are tasked with surviving against Tengen, who plays the role of a demon hunting them. Tanjiro, as the strongest among them, has the objective of defeating the former Hashira. The trainees form a circle in the clearing, constantly aware of their surroundings as they attempt to detect Tengen's presence. However, their attempts are in vain as Tengen efficiently incapacitates them one by one, his speed rendering him invisible in the darkness. Despite knowing not to expect anything less from Tengen, Tanjiro finds it difficult to sense him through scent. However, he eventually catches sight of Tengen's movements in the moonlight. Tengen systematically continues taking down the trainees until the light reveals his position. When one trainee despairingly declares that it is impossible to face him, Tengen suddenly appears behind him, asking if he would say the same thing to a demon attempting to kill him. He then swiftly knocks the trainee unconscious. Tanjiro urgently warns the remaining trainees that Tengen will see through any half-hearted attack, advising them to group together and avoid leaving any openings. As the trainees gather around Tanjiro, Tengen attempts to attack again but is thwarted as Tanjiro blocks his swing. The force of their clash blows away the trainees, but Tanjiro remains steadfast. Tengen praises Tanjiro's intuition, remarking on his strength. He orders Tanjiro to attack him, leading to an intense fight between them. The trainees are astonished by Tanjiro's ability to clash with Tengen, while the latter is impressed by how much stronger Tanjiro has become. As the fight continues, Tengen swiftly turns to face the trainees as they approach, though their attacks prove ineffective. Nonetheless, they manage to encircle him, much to Tanjiro's gratitude. Tengen is amused by the trainees' efforts to reach him, and expresses his excitement for the battle, remarking that the fight has become intriguing. The trainees all converge on him, further intensifying the fight, while Tengen gracefully spins his bamboo blade, seemingly enjoying the challenge. After their intense training session, Tengen chastises the trainees for being defeated by someone retired, adding further insult as they remain silent in defense. A trainee finally speaks up, expressing that battling a former hashira was too challenging. Tengen counters that he is not training them to scare them and is about to continue when another trainee boldly declares that they now have hope that the Hashiras and Tanjiro can defeat Muzan. More trainees echo this sentiment aloud, pledging to do their best to support them. Inspired by both Tengen and Tanjiro's guidance, the trainees commit to working harder and becoming stronger, leaving Tengen speechless. The following day, Tengen observes the trainees vigorously exercising with newfound fervor. Recognizing that Tanjiro has nothing left to learn, Tengen muses to himself that the trainees will grow in their own way, emphasizing the necessity of Tanjiro's departure to continue his journey. Following a brief goodbye, Tanjiro departs with his pack, expressing gratitude to Tengen and his wives. The former hashira and his wives bid farewell to their friend, expressing optimism for a reunion in the future. Guided by his Kasugai crow, Tanjiro proceeds to the next training site. Upon entering the building, Tanjiro witnesses Muichiro facing off against a trainee, who implores him to cease the training session. Muichiro, however, replies coldly that the trainee will be killed if he fails to fight back. With effortless ease, Muichiro disarms and incapacitates the trainee, holding the wooden blade to his throat. He then asserts that the trainee would have died 3 times had the fight been real, highlighting the gap in their skill. Tanjiro advances to the next stage of training and enters Muichiro's dojo. He observes Muichiro lecturing and sparring with a trainee, who pleads for mercy, saying he has endured enough. Muichiro responds coldly, asserting that the trainee would be devoured by demons with his lack of effort, and commands him to continue fighting. The trainee swings his wooden bokuto, only to be disarmed and knocked down by Muichiro, who remarks that he would have been killed 3 times over in an actual battle. Muichiro then turns to the other trainees, all visibly exhausted and weary, and instructs them to persist in motion even when hit. Both the trainer and trainees assume their stances, and the Mist Hashira orders them to keep up with him. In rapid succession, Muichiro swiftly defeats several trainees, even placing his wooden blade at one trainee's neck to exemplify his inability to keep up before striking his wrists. Again reminding them of their supposed death should they cease to move, Muichiro then turns his attention to Tanjiro at the entrance. Tanjiro is taken aback by Muichiro's abrupt change in behavior, which is uncharacteristically friendly. Muichiro greets Tanjiro warmly, expressing pleasure upon his arrival. The Hashira's Kasugai crow Ginkgo wastes no time in chastising the trainees and wishing for their demise, much to their disappointment as they try to fend her off. Tanjiro bows to Muichiro and reveals his excitement to train with him. Muichiro reciprocates the sentiment and invites him to follow outside. Entering a shed in his yard, Muichiro announces their arrival to swordsmith Kozo Kanamori. Tanjiro is taken aback to see him once more, and Kozo admits he is relieved to see his recovery. When Tanjiro queries the reason for Kozo's presence, Muichiro answers that he was the one who invited him. Picking up a katana from a nearby rack, Muichiro requests Tanjiro to hold it. Tanjiro obliges and is astonished when Muichiro throws a paper aircraft at the blade, effortlessly cutting it cleanly in 2. Tanjiro marvels at the katana's sharpness, and Muichiro explains that Kozo will now stay perpetually with him, dedicated to maintaining his sword's combat readiness. He mentions that upon being informed of this decision, Kagaya had approved and even provided Kozo with a designated workspace to sharpen his swords. However, Muichiro expresses concern about Kagaya's tendency to prioritize the needs of his hashira over his own health, even at the risk of his own well-being. He wishes that the core leader had been more mindful of his own health. During intense training later in the day, Muichiro instructs his adversary to retrieve his weapon again. Exhausted and nursing injuries, the trainee launches a frenzied attack only to be quickly overpowered by Muichiro. Tanjiro is left unsettled by the harsh encounter, and Muichiro criticizes the trainee for his emotional attack, likening it to a moth flying into a flame. He explains that even if one wins more times than they lose, a single defeat in battle can lead to death, thus every move must be honed for survival. Seeing the trainee's lack of response, Muichiro prematurely ends the training session and departs, and the other trainees quickly tend to their injured comrades. One trainee suggests approaching Muichiro to ease the pressure, but another asserts they may collapse before ever facing a demon. Tanjiro instead remarks that Muichiro might be struggling the most, as he is training them alone, a point that the others half-heartedly agree with. As the trainees rest outside, they express a desire for Muichiro to adjust his tone, hoping for some leniency. Tanjiro points out that Muichiro's approach has already become softer than it used to be, a fact that they find hard to accept. They then notice the hashira exiting the building and heading off somewhere, a routine he follows every night. As the town quiets down, all the lights going out for the night, hundreds of crawling eyes marked 4 emerge from the darkness. They silently crawl along the wall, stalking the area around, all originating from the Biwa demon of the Infinity Castle. Muichiro runs up the stairs leading to a shrine where Sanemi and Obanai are sparring. Sanemi uses wind breathing, 4th form, rising dust storm to defend against Obanai's serpent breathing, 5th form, slithering serpent. Muichiro then requests to join them. Sanemi notices Muichiro's nightly visits and asks about his training. Muichiro explains that the usual training regimen is insufficient for him, to which Sanemi relates, noting that true hashira training for him and Obanai involves sparring with each other. Muichiro points out the inequality of only them receiving effective training, but Obanai responds that they'll honor his decision to come to them, and they'll both engage him. Muichiro jokes about the unfairness of fighting them both, but still takes his position. Utilizing mist breathing, Muichiro swiftly rushes past Obanai's attack, catching him off guard, before maneuvering around Sanemi to strike him. Sanemi evades the mist hashira's blade, launching himself away with a kick but narrowly missing his own attack. Muichiro then swings at him, but Sanemi uses his foot to block his sword. This leads to an intense fight, enveloping the courtyard in a cloud of debris and dust. Ginkgo encourages Muichiro from afar, prompting Sanemi to try and silence her praises with a targeted attack. Following the clash, which has left the ground full of craters, Sanemi reflects on the demanding sparring session. He concludes that training the core members during the day and engaging in combat training at night will sufficiently prepare them. Obanai queries Muichiro about his training, and Muichiro replies that Tanjiro has come to his place for rehabilitation. This surprises both Hashira, who dislike Tanjiro, and Obanai comments that he intends to be thorough in training him. Sanemi confidently asserts that Tanjiro, while stronger, is no match for Hashira, eager to prove it. Muichiro wishes Tanjiro luck and encourages him to do his best. During training the next day, Muichiro intentionally misses a slash aimed at a trainee's neck to illustrate that he would be dead. Noticing the stillness of the one behind him, Muichiro delivers a final strike. As he observes his already battered trainees, Muichiro concludes that they lack the tension for proper combat and orders the use of real swords for the next session, further worrying them and Tanjiro. The trainee, wielding one of Muichiro's highly sharpened blades, becomes increasingly anxious as the hashira instructs him to take a stance. The following days pass with Tanjiro diligently honing his strength and endurance under Muichiro's guidance. As the two spar, Tanjiro's increased speed and smooth transitions in his movements impress the hashira, who commends his progress and advises him on further improvements. Despite his progress, Tanjiro's improvement only seems to further irk the other trainees who have been training under Muichiro for longer yet show less progress. Despite their growing resentment, Tanjiro remains focused on his goal. As Tanjiro learns more about Muichiro's hobby for paper planes, he suggests a friendly competition to hopefully lighten the mood and break the tension. Muichiro agrees, and they set the terms of the challenge. The trainees, eager to have a reprieve from Muichiro's harsh training, cheer Tanjiro on as they hope for a chance to catch a break. The two embark on their paper plane challenge, and with each attempt, Muichiro's expertise becomes more apparent, leaving Tanjiro with one last shot. Though he puts his all into his final throw, Tanjiro ultimately fails, losing the competition. The trainees, now envious of the special attention Tanjiro has received, step up to challenge Muichiro themselves. A frenzy of paper folding and plane building ensues as everyone is determined to best the hashira. As the planes take flight, a smile appears on Muichiro's face as he sees the joy the competition has brought the trainees. Tanjiro senses that the training session has allowed the team to bond further. As Tanjiro and Muichiro observe the trainees' planes soaring, Tanjiro reveals that Muzan's targeting of Nezuko for her sunlight immunity has indirectly benefited the Demon Slayer Corps, as Muzan's focus on her has led to reduced demon activity, giving them time to focus on their own preparations. Muichiro agrees, noting that it is ideal for them. Tanjiro expresses concern over being away from Nezuko but reconsiders, acknowledging that bringing her along could expose her to danger. Arriving at Mitsuri's mansion, Tanjiro is welcomed by her excitement. He gratefully bows, expressing his joy at seeing her. He queries if she keeps bees, having caught a sweet scent, and Mitsuri confirms it. She ushers Tanjiro inside, explaining that she will prepare black tea and buttered pancakes for him. Unacquainted with Western cuisine, Tanjiro wonders about butter and pancakes, but Mitsuri's excitement compels him to play along as she chants about pancakes. Tanjiro is welcomed by the cheerful love hashira. As they move to the kitchen, Mitsuri explains that she will prepare black tea and pancakes for him, insisting that he must add butter and top them with honey. Curious about the ingredients, Tanjiro barely recognizes the black tea and is perplexed by the unfamiliarity of butter and pancakes. Seated at the table, Tanjiro is puzzled by the stack of pancakes, not knowing how to eat them. Mitsu in turns cuts through the stack and feeds Tanjiro a piece, which he exclaims in excitement at the taste, expressing that it is to die for. Mitsuri concurs and explains that once he is done eating, he must attempt to don a pink uniform. Compliantly, Tanjiro changes into the pink uniform to join other trainees, clearly embarrassed by their attire. Tanjiro, however, is exhilarated to begin. While some struggle to maintain their balance, Tanjiro seamlessly follows Mitsuri's lead in each exercise. As the trainees continue, Mitsuri stresses the importance of a flexible body in achieving more precise movements, which enhances combat capabilities. Throughout the training process, Tanjiro's understanding of flexibility and its impact on combat proves to deepen, reinforcing the significance of adaptable bodies in demon slaying. Tanjiro arrives at Obanai's residence, where the serpent Hashira had been waiting for him. However, his excitement about training is cut short by a threat to his life. Obanai informs him that Mitsuri has spoken about her experience training him. Obanai presents Tanjiro with a training regime designed specifically for him, but is shocked to see numerous trainees bound to poles in the Hashira's dojo. His mission is to wield a sword while evading the obstacles strewn around the room to improve his swordsmanship. But Tanjiro wonders if it is a place for execution. When asked about the crimes committed by these individuals, Obanai reveals that they are guilty of committing the crimes of weakness, failure to learn, wasting his time, and annoying him. Tanjiro, bewildered, ponders how he will carry out such a task as he holds a bokuto and watches a demonstration. Obanai cuts through the room, striking spring-loaded chimes with incredible speed and accuracy. Tanjiro watches in awe but is then instructed to begin his turn. Despite the challenge of training with merely a bokuto, Tanjiro recognized the potential for injuries upon mistakenly hitting someone. His task was hindered by the need to navigate his way around the trainee hostages while avoiding strikes from Obanai, who weaved through the poles with serpentine-like precision. When Tanjiro revealed to the hostages his motivation for training, they acknowledged and joined him in the practice. Later, as they prepared to enter the onsen, they grimaced at the prospect of the hot water aggravating their injuries. Despite the pain, they jumped into the water, only to let out screams of agony as the cuts stung. Over the following days, Tanjiro's training with Obanai yielded minimal progress as he continued to be struck during their sparring sessions, resulting in another painful onsen experience each night. On the fourth day, Tanjiro ran to the left as Obanai reprimanded him for not attacking. In his attempt to swing, he nearly hit a trainee's head, realizing the need to focus solely on Obanai and the danger of a real-life obstacle. To accomplish this, he envisioned a dense forest and fought as if he and Obanai were amidst trees. With this newfound focus and awareness, Tanjiro's attacks became more precise, culminating in a successful nick against Obanai's Hayori, signaling the completion of his training stage. The scene shifts to Tanjiro carrying the unconscious Zenitsu, with Sanemi giving him orders to take him back to the dojo. Tanjiro responds with excitement about finally starting his training, but Sanemi quickly shuts him down, warning him not to get too cocky, as he has not yet been accepted. The scene then moves to Tanjiro's training with Sanemi, who is shown to be both brutal and unrelenting in his methods. Tanjiro struggles to keep up with the training, which involves sparring against Sanemi, who refuses to give any breaks. The task is made even more difficult due to Sanomi's brutal fighting style. Tanjiro quickly realizes that the training is extremely intense and relentless, and he feels even more sympathy towards Zenitsu, who had been so desperate to escape. Even Obanai, who is known for being strict, gave him more breaks than Sanemi. The Wind Hashira continues to be rough with Tanjiro, attacking him anytime he loses focus, and even backhanding the Demon Slayer across the face. The result is that Tanjiro's body becomes bruised and swollen. Feeling demoralized, Tanjiro enters the Hashira's house where he hears Genya pleading with Sanemi, who brushes him off, denying their relationship and even threatening to kill him if he dares continue. Tanjiro, listening to the exchange, is struck by the harshness in Sanemi's tone, noting that it is unlike the warm and playful banter he has with his own siblings, remembering when he wrestled with Shigeru and tickled him until he relented. Sanemi tells Genya not to act like they are close, and belittles him by saying that he lacks skill. suggesting that he should resign from the Demon Slayer Corps since he doesn't use breathing techniques. As Sanemi turns to leave, Genya urgently tries to apologize, but Sanemi ignores his words and walks away. Feeling that Genya's chances are slipping away, Genya makes a sudden confession, claiming that he has eaten demons to become stronger and reach his current position. Shocked, Sanemi stops in his tracks and demands that Genya repeat himself. Tanjiro and Genya are both startled as Sanemi stomps his foot in anger, creating a tense atmosphere. Sanemi vanishes, and Genya looks around in confusion, not understanding how he could have disappeared so quickly. Tanjiro, sensing that something is wrong, races forward in a brave attempt to reach them. However, Sanemi appears behind Genya and attempts to tear out his eyes. Tanjiro quickly reacts and grabs Genya, pushing him away, but in the process, Sanemi inadvertently slices his cheek with his fingers. The two fall through the wall into the yard, causing a loud noise that catches Zenitsu's attention, who is training alongside the other trainees. The other trainees are curious about what is happening, and they wonder if it's the end of the training session. They are taken aback by the sudden loud noise as Tanjiro and Genya land in the yard after crashing through the wall. The scene shifts to Zenitsu and the other trainees, who pretend to faint upon seeing the enraged Sanemi, thinking he has returned. They observe Tanjiro standing outside, who urgently looks inside the house imploring Sanemi to stop. However, an ominous and loud sound fills the air as the wind hashira steps out. Tanjiro confronts Sanemi, demanding to know if he intended to kill Genya. Sanemi replies he was not, but instead wanted to cripple him. Tanjiro is shocked and angry at Sanemi's words, demanding to know why he would attempt to injure Genya. Sanemi refuses to back down, and Tanjiro stands firm in defending Genya. He insists that Sanemi has no right to decide what is best for Genya, especially after disowning him so soon. Tanjiro claims that Genya chose to fight beside them against upper-ranked demons, and that they wouldn't have survived without him. He vows not to let Sanemi harm Genya and steps forward, taking a defensive stance. Sanemi is surprised by Tanjiro's determination and switches his target from Genya to the Demon Slayer. He lunges at him with incredible speed, and the trainees watch, bracing for impact. Tanjiro, however, moves quickly, stopping Sanemi's fist just before it connects with his chest. He then kicks the hashira in the head, stunning him. The trainees and Genya watch in shock as the hashira, known for his fierce might, has been dealt a blow by Tanjiro. Noticing Genya and Zenitsu in the vicinity, Tanjiro urgently instructs Zenitsu to take Genya away from the scene. Genya is reluctant to leave, but Tanjiro remains adamant to keep him safe. Sanemi is furious and claims that Tanjiro's actions must be a prelude to death, and he would gladly eliminate him. Genya steps forward, trying to calm his brother down. However, his efforts are cut short as Zenitsu intervenes, pulling Genya away from the scene. Feeling frustrated, Genya punches Zenitsu in the face, expressing his annoyance at being dragged away. Zenitsu responds that they should separate two people fighting and that he pities Genya, considering the fact that he has a total lunatic as an elder brother. Meanwhile, Sanemi and Tanjiro continue their fierce scuffle as the trainees struggle to restrain Sanemi from causing further harm to Tanjiro. Despite the best efforts to intervene, the two continue to brawl until sunsets. The next day, Tanjiro finds himself reprimanded by the Demon Slayer Corps for his actions and is informed that his training with Sanemi has been suspended, and he is forbidden from approaching the Hashira. Tanjiro is more disappointed in his failure to reconcile the Shinazugawa siblings. Tanjiro and Zenitsu walk through a mountain forest. He expresses his frustration over Sanemi's training being suspended. He believes that his training is not bearing any fruit, but Zenitsu reassures him that he witnessed Tanjiro holding his own against the Hashira, claiming it was impressive. When they reach a waterfall, they are startled by the sight of the other trainees, including Inosuke, chanting a religious mantra as they struggle to stand under the forceful torrent. They are even more surprised when a voice sounds from behind them, belonging to the stone Hashira, Gyome Himejima. The two are dumbfounded when they see him carrying heavy logs and rocks while standing on blazing ground. Himejima welcomes Tanjiro and Zenitsu to his training grounds upon the mountain, explaining the practice of extinguishing their heart and mind to quench the fire of the soul. At Gyome's training grounds, the stone Hashira explains the importance of the body's core, specifically the lower body. He teaches Tanjiro and Zenitsu that having a solid foundation will improve both their accuracy and defense. Training begins by immersing themselves under a waterfall, and they observe two trainees struggling to remain upright. They then need to lift a heavy set of 3 logs bound together, and finally, they must push a huge boulder for a distance of 100 meters. Despite the simplicity of the tasks, Gyomei advises against setting the ground ablaze for safety reasons. Tanjiro interrupts to inform Gyomei that Zenitsu has fainted, and the stone hashira instructs Tanjiro to throw him into the river. As Tanjiro places Zenitsu in the water, he abruptly wakes up, trying to reach dry land while complaining about the coldness of the water. Even when he's out of the water, Zenitsu continues to shiver uncontrollably, and he senses something behind him and sees Murata, who tells him to cling to the boulders for warmth. Zenitsu instantly lunges towards a boulder, feeling its unexpected warmth. He remarks how he never imagined a rock could be so warm, and compares it to the comforting embrace of his mother's arms. Concurrently, Tanjiro struggles to reach the waterfall to commence training. He spots Inosuke beneath it, endlessly repeating the words, "Coming through," as he endures the force of the torrent. A nearby trainee soon gives up and leaves the waterfall area, and Tanjiro praises his perseverance, declaring he should also try his best. He then notices that Inosuke is no longer speaking, sensing something awry as he pulls him out of the falls and performs CPR. Upon Inosuke awakening, Tanjiro sheds tears of relief. During a break, Tanjiro cooks fish for the trainees. Inosuke quickly devours his food, expressing his bewilderment at the stone hashira, whom he has affectionately nicknamed Old Guy with the Rattling Beads. Tanjiro gently admonishes him for the moniker, and Inosuke admits he felt a chill upon meeting Gyomei for the first time. Everyone is astonished to witness Inosuke ingesting the bones as well, and he claims it's because they taste good. Inosuke is convinced that Gyomei is the most powerful hashira, and Tanjiro concurs, observing that his scent differs from the others. When Tanjiro wonders if Gyomei has gained the mark, Inosuke recalls the time he was pounded into the ground by him, expressing that it wouldn't be surprising if he did. The other trainees grumble about their difficulty in keeping up with the conversation, expressing their belief that the ones who have advanced quickly are on a different level. They also appreciate Tanjiro's cooking skills. Zenitsu becomes infuriated when Tanjiro mentions hearing that the stone hashira can move even bigger boulders, mocking him for believing everything he hears. Tanjiro replies that given his sharp hearing, he can tell if Zenitsu is lying. At that moment, Gyomei appears behind the group while pushing an enormous boulder, chanting the Nyanfo. When Tanjiro expresses his desire to be like Gyomei, Zenitsu repeatedly hits him for his optimism amidst the intense training, claiming there is a gap between giants and little people. Inosuke puts on his mask and confidently declares he will lift the logs and push the boulder, annoying Zenitsu even more. During waterfall training, Tanjiro and Zenitsu struggle to maintain their stance while chanting the Nenbutsu and Nyanfo, though Zenitsu loses his footing and needs to be rescued by Tanjiro. Afterwards, Tanjiro moves on to the log training. Despite the struggle to lift the logs, he successfully pushes them over his head, preparing for the final task. As Muzan ponders his progress in locating Nezuko and the Master, he expresses confidence in soon finding them. He reflects on his meeting with Nakime, whom he compliments on her growth beyond his expectations. Nakime expresses gratitude for his words before Muzan instructs her to search in a new location. Using her biwa, Nakime accesses the view from the detached eye in the area and follows 2 more demon slayers. Muzan believes it is only a matter of time until he has both Nezuko and the Master. During Tanjiro's first attempt to push the boulder but fails, his sandal breaks. As he walks back to fix it, he encounters several trainees preparing to leave the mountain. When he inquired about the reason for their early departure, they explain they cannot keep up with the training and confess a sense of failure for bailing on the mountain. Tanjiro tries to encourage them, reassuring that their support will be crucial for the stronger fighters like him. Their spirits boosted, the trainees depart, entrusting their support to him. After fixing his sandal, Tanjiro attempts to push the boulder again but fails again. During a break, the trainees are amazed by Tanjiro's cooking skills and compliment his onigiri, thanking him for the treat. They wonder why there are not many trainers for the hashira, with Zenitsu speculating it's either due to the difficulty of the training or because they give up after seeing the powerful hashira. Everyone praises the strength of the hashira and commends Tanjiro's cooking skills, attributing it to his background as a charcoal burner. He prepares miso-flavored onigiri, causing the trainees to fondly recall their own mother's cooking. As Tanjiro continues his arduous training, he reflects on the impact of Genya's advice. His heart rate and body temperature gradually increase, but his initial attempts are only barely able to nudge the boulder. Despite his progress, he is interrupted by his peers requesting him to prepare dinner. While preparing dinner, Genya arrives and helps Tanjiro. They discuss his attempt at repetitive action, and Tanjiro describes the technique as feeling different from total concentration. However, its reliance on emotions makes it difficult to control. In the midst of their conversation, Genya prompts Tanjiro to reflect on when he experiences his emotions most strongly. This leaves Tanjiro contemplating, and Genya apologizes, thinking he had upset him, but Tanjiro assures him he is not offended. Genya reassures him of his ability to master repetitive action. A sense of determination fills Tanjiro as he recollects the words of his fallen mentor, Kyojuro. The memory of his loved ones fuels his resolve, and his mark reappears on his forehead. With newfound strength, Tanjiro pushes with all his might against the boulder, and to his surprise it moves slightly. Excited by his initial success, Tanjiro pushes again, only to find that the boulder did not budge this time. Nevertheless, he refuses to give up. He realizes that for the first time, he was able to use his full strength with the technique. Taking a deep breath, Tanjiro recommits himself and concentrates on the memories that motivate him to keep pushing. Using repetitive action, Tanjiro's mark remains present, and he continuously pushes with all his strength, surprising his friends who had been watching. As the mark continues to strengthen him, Tanjiro persists in pushing the boulder, and gradually, it begins to move again. In the distant Infinity Castle, Muzan contemplates the potential plans that Kagaya, the current core leader, may be devising. He ponders what the leader looks like now, as he is aware that he had been aging for the past century since becoming a demon. Tanjiro, with renewed determination, finally manages to move the boulder, to the astonishment of Zenitsu and Inosuke's chagrin. Despite his success, Tanjiro knows that any pause will cause his strength to diminish, and he must keep pushing the boulder for as long as he can. Remembering the advice given by his master, Tanjiro engages his legs and hips to provide additional force, digging his feet into the earth. Inspired by Tanjiro's success, Inosuke begins chanting tempura in a manic manner to motivate himself and makes his own attempt at the boulder training. Zenitsu watches this unfold, but he is still yet to make his own push. The little sparrow Chuntaro suddenly appears and chirps impatiently, attempting to get Zenitsu's attention. Initially, Zenitsu dismisses the little bird, assuming he is motivated to push the boulder. However, when Chuntaro resorts to pecking his foot repeatedly, he finally turns his attention to the bird. Meanwhile, Tanjiro continues to push the boulder, gritting his teeth and exerting all his energy. He struggles to keep his muscles moving, but eventually manages to shift the boulder one cho. With the boulder successfully moved, Tanjiro collapses to the ground, utterly spent and struggling to catch his breath. Despite his fatigue, he weakly calls for help, his face turning blue from dehydration. Suddenly, a large figure approaches and pours water over Tanjiro's head, quenching his thirst. Confused, Tanjiro looks up and sees the towering shape of Gyomei standing over him. Initially, Tanjiro assumes he has died and has been greeted by a Buddha-like figure, until he sits up and realizes he is still alive. Amazed and grateful, Tanjiro looks up at Gyomei, who commends him for moving the boulder and completing the intensive training. In addition, he praises Tanjiro for his actions in the village, acknowledging his courage and selflessness. Tanjiro, still taken aback by Gyomei's words, questions what he means by the village. In response, Gyomei clarifies that he is referring to the swordsmith village and how Tanjiro had prioritized saving the villagers' lives over rescuing his sister Nezuko. Tanjiro tries to interject, stating that Nezuko had been the one to make the decision. However, Gyomei continues by saying that it was not something to be ashamed of, and that Tanjiro should be proud of his actions. Tanjiro, still unconvinced, replies that his hesitation had almost caused the villagers' deaths, claiming that he does not deserve Gyomei's acknowledgement. This causes Gyomei to reflect on his past life, as he states that children are not only innocent and pure, but also weak, prone to lying, and capable of being cruel. Despite this, Gyomei does not see these characteristics in Tanjiro, recognizing his commitment to the right path despite his uncertainty about the future. Tanjiro reveals that he always finds someone to help him stay on track, and he had a particularly close call during the swordsmith village when he had to choose between saving Nezuko and facing Urami. Therefore, Tanjiro requests that Gyomei not acknowledge him too quickly, and thanks him for the water and for training him. In response, Gyomei affirms that he has dispelled Tanjiro's doubts and acknowledges him, causing Tanjiro to be puzzled and ask why he commends him. Gyomei shares that it is because he once lived in a temple, raising orphans. Years ago, he observed the children under his care preparing to eat. When one of the children mentioned the fish they had for food, Gyomei explained that he met a fish vendor who gave him unsold goods. Before the children could eat, the youngest child, a girl named Sayo, gave her fish to Gyomei, explaining that he was too thin and could have it instead. Gyomei laughed at her gesture but appreciated her concern, reassuring her that he has undergone special training to prevent hunger from bothering him. He joked that despite his appearance, he was still stronger than all of them, as one of the boys asked Sayo for her fish instead. She refused, insisting that it belonged to Gyomei, leading everyone to laugh. The stone hashira shared that, despite not being blood-related, everyone in the temple got along well. Everyone helped one another, and they lived like a family, a life that he was content with living forever. As they slept, a boy disobeyed the rules and stayed out beyond the temple's curfew. He encountered a demon, and in a desperate attempt to save himself, he offered Gyomei and the other children to the demon instead. He returned to the temple and destroyed the incense burners that protected the temple, allowing the demon to enter. The demon entered the room where the children slept, killing 4 of them and alerting Gyomei with the sounds of their deaths. The remaining 4 children hid behind him as he failed to protect them, trying to flee only to be caught and killed by the demon. The stone hashika remembers the other children's disbelief in his ability to protect them due to his physical appearance, personality, and blindness. Only Sayo stayed in the corner as he fought, and as the memories cause him to recall his rosary, Gyomei remembers his firm resolve to protect her at all costs. Roaring in anger, he grabbed the demon's wrist, suffering a wound from its claws, before ripping off its forearms. The stone hashira unleashed a powerful punch on the demon's head, then threw himself on top of it, repeatedly punching its head to restrain it. The floor shook with each blow while Sayo cried in fear. Gyomei continued to punch the demon until dawn, losing many things, getting injured, and risking his life to protect Sayo. However, when villagers came to the temple, Sayo proclaimed that Gyomei was the monster who killed all the children, having been too young to comprehend the traumatic event properly. Tanjiro listens on, and Gyomei reflects that no one could blame a child for such a statement, though he had always hoped for a gesture of gratitude in return. Despite his hope, Gyomei concluded that children can only think about themselves. When dawn arrived, the demon's corpse vanished in the sunlight, leaving only the children's remains behind, and Gyomei lost many things. The stone hashira had previously been imprisoned for murder and would have faced execution had it not been for the intervention of Kagaya. This experience left him deeply distrustful, making him naturally suspicious of Tanjiro. He believed that people's true characters revealed themselves in dire situations, and he had lost faith in their outward virtuousness. Tanjiro, however, stood out as a special child due to his unwavering purity and sincerity, a quality that few can maintain, regardless of the situation. As everyone grappled with uncertainty, Gyomei promised to help Tanjiro and ensure that he would never stray from his path. Touched by his sincere support, Tanjiro shed tears of gratitude and promised to do his best. Gyomei reassured him by patting his head, reminding them both of a moment he had shared with Sayo. During breakfast with Inosuke and Tanjiro, Genya remarked that despite what others may think, Gyomei was a kind person. He had been unable to become a Suguko due to a lack of talent. Tanjiro explained that he had wanted to talk to Genya during their walk about his brother, but the discussion was interrupted by their fight. Despite this, Tanjiro remained steadfast in his belief that Shinobu's harshness stemmed from her genuine care for Genya. As he went about his training, Tanjiro encountered Zenitsu sitting on his boulder, still not having moved. Concerned by his distant demeanor, Tanjiro offered to help, but Zenitsu rejected his offer and told him to focus on his own training. Tanjiro was worried, but ultimately respected his friend's decision and left him with some fish. As Tanjiro continued on his way to Gyu's, he couldn't help but worry about Zenitsu. Additionally, he was thinking about Nezuko, having been apart from her for some time. However, any concerns faded as he realized he had gotten lost and began looking at his map to find his way. Suddenly, he heard the sound of clashing wooden blades coming from a courtyard nearby. Curious, Tanjiro ran towards the source of the noise. As he arrived in the courtyard, Tanjiro was awestruck by the sight before him. Giyu and Sanemi were engaged in an intense sparring match, their movements fast and precise. Tanjiro watched in fascination as they blocked and sliced at each other, their clashing blades creating sparks with each impact. Tanjiro marveled at Sanemi's speed, amazed that he could actually see and comprehend their movements. He quickly counterattacked with wind breathing, fifth form, cold mountain wind, aiming a powerful blow at Giyu. Giyu blocked the attack with water breathing, seventh form, drop ripple thrust, causing their blades to clash in a violent burst of sparks. The force of the impact shattered both of their bokuto, leaving them without weapons. As the scene unfolded in the courtyard, Sanemi became increasingly irritated and decided to make the training more interesting. He decided to continue the fight without the use of wooden blades and challenged Giyu to a physical altercation, ignoring Tanjiro's presence. However, Tanjiro quickly jumped in and intervened, stopping Sanemi from attacking Giyu. Sanemi was annoyed by Tanjiro's interruption and questioned him on why he was there, assuming he was spying on them. Tanjiro, however, asked him if they were fighting over ohagi, a type of Japanese sweet. This only angered Sanemi further, and he demanded to know if Tanjiro was joking. In response, Tanjiro assured him that he wasn't joking, and mentioned smelling the scent of mochi and red bean paste at his residence during training, as well as the scent of green tea whenever he appeared. Both Giyu and Sanemi were taken aback by Tanjiro's observations. Giyu turned to Sanemi, surprised by Tanjiro's comment about his favorite food. Tanjiro took advantage of the situation and engaged Sanemi in small talk, asking him if he preferred his ohagi coarse or fine, and stating that he enjoyed his grandmother's recipe. Sanemi's anger grew as Tanjiro continued his questions, but Giyu looked on with curiosity. Unwilling to admit his fondness for ohagi, Sanemi lost his temper, punching Tanjiro in the face. Tanjiro sat up, rubbing his cheek and looking confused. Giyu kneeled down beside him, explaining that Sanemi had gotten angry and had stormed off. Tanjiro apologized for interrupting them, but Giyu assured him it was all right since he was too busy fighting to chat with him, and that Sanemi remained angry with him the whole time. Giyu mentioned that the hashiras often sparred with other hashiras, and that they were using wooden swords during their training. Tanjiro understood and apologized, feeling sheepish for interrupting. Meanwhile, Tanjiro's Kasugai crow hovered nearby, commenting on the absurdity of their idea to befriend Sanemi with ohagi. At that moment, Sanemi suddenly appeared at the bottom of the stairs, grumbling about the absence of both Obanai and Muichiro. He complained that if he only trained with the lesser-skilled demon slayers, he would only become rusty. As he thought about Tanjiro's earlier comments, Sanemi's annoyance escalated. He grumbled about Tanjiro's behavior before stopping in his tracks to notice something moving behind him. He reached out and grabbed hold of a demonic marked eye that was twitching and moving around, and then watched as it burned to ash, leaving only a burn mark in his palm. He then realized that the core had been infiltrated and that demons had managed to sneak past the wisteria barriers surrounding the base. The scene shifted to the Ubuyashiki mansion, where Amane carefully held Kagaya's weak and frail arm. She looked up and stared out of the door, sensing something in the distance. Muzan walked along a path towards the gate of the complex. Sharply dressed and shrouded in smoke, he strut arrogantly across the yard and approached the entrance of the Ubuyashiki home. Kagaya, despite his bandaged eyes, could sense Muzan's arrival and turned his head towards the outside, listening intently. Muzan stood at the front of the Ubuyashiki mansion, facing the leader of the Demon Slayer Corps. Kagaya, despite his declining health, acknowledged the significance of the moment. He spoke with a weak but determined voice, as Amane held his arm, describing Muzan's appearance to him with a careful and precise tone. According to Amane, Muzan appeared as a man in his mid to late 20s, yet his eyes were a striking light pink color and his pupils were vertical and cat-like. Kagaya was taken aback by the description, knowing instinctively that Muzan's arrival had been inevitable. Muzan, in turn, was not pleased with Kagaya's current state, clearly disappointed to see the head of the family responsible for his constant roadblocks now so sickly and weakened. He drew attention to Kagaya's sickly and unsightly appearance, noting the scent of a corpse lingering about him. Kagaya, acknowledging the truth in Muzan's words, confirmed his condition had been dire, stating that his doctor had given him only a few days to live 6 months prior, and yet he had continued to persevere. His doctor was at a loss for words, and Kagaya confessed that it was solely his enduring desire to defeat Muzan that had kept him alive for this long. This revelation did not impress Muzan, who coldly stated that Kagaya's relentless ambition would soon come to an end once he was killed. Kagaya then explained that they both came from the same bloodline, with Muzan having been born over 1,000 years ago. He revealed that the Ubuyashiki family had been cursed because it had given birth to a monster like Muzan. Children born into the family were prone to die prematurely after birth, and as the clan neared extinction, a priest had advised them. The priest had informed them that the clan could only survive by dedicating themselves to hunting down the demon born from their bloodline. The Ubuyashiki family also began to marry the daughters of priests, hoping that it would reduce the risk of their children dying early, though it did not entirely eliminate the curse. No one in the clan had lived past the age of 30. Muzan, unimpressed and dismissive, mocked the Ubuyashiki family's curse history as irrelevant nonsense, expressing that it made him want to gag, questioning if Kagaya's illness had clouded his thinking. He asserted that he had never faced any divine retribution for killing thousands of humans, and that throughout his life of over 1,000 years, he had never seen any gods or Buddha intervene. Kagaya, recognizing Muzan's perspective but still maintaining his own beliefs, explained that he too had a way of thinking. He asked Muzan about what he had been dreaming of for the last 1,000 years. The demon, however, did not immediately answer and instead noted an odd feeling he was experiencing. Despite being in the presence of the leader of the Demon Slayer Corps, Muzan did not feel any hate towards him. To his right, he observed as Kagaya's two daughters, Nichika and Hinaki, continued to play blissfully, seemingly unaware of his presence. Muzan found a strange sense of familiarity and relief, to his disgust, and looked around to count a total of 4 humans present in the mansion. Kagaya, sensing Muzan's thoughts, offered to answer his question, and declared that Muzan dreamed of immortality, which caught the demon's attention. Muzan acknowledged Kagaya's response and added that he would achieve his dream once he obtained Nezuko, only for Kagaya to defiantly challenge his claim, stating that his dream would never be realized. Muzan believed Kagaya was being overconfident in hiding Nezuko and told him that unlike him, he would have all the time in the world to find her. Kagaya continued by explaining that Muzan was misunderstood, as he knew what true eternity was. It was the will and feelings of people, and only it could exist forever. Muzan, disregarding the idea as rubbish, professed that the words sickened him, to which Kagaya responded by elaborating that the Demon Slayer Corps had never been eradicated for the past 1,000 years. Despite the numerous deaths of its members, it had endured and still survived. The Corps itself was the irrefutable proof of what he was dismissing as impermanent. No one has ever forgiven Muzan for the countless deaths he has caused over the past 1,000 years. The Demon Slayers are enraged by his cruelty, and they are determined to make sure he never escapes. Kagaya believes that Muzan is now facing the wrath of all demons, and he thinks that his own death will not have much of an impact on the Demon Slayers Corps. However, he is grateful to be respected and loved by the Hashira, and he believes that his death will only make them even more determined to keep fighting against Muzan and the demons. In a previous meeting between the Hashira, they discussed the lack of protection for the Oyakata, Kagaya Ubuyashiki. Senemi proposed that at least 2 Hashira should be guarding him, but Yome explained that nothing can be done, as the Oyakata has always refused to have guards and considers the Hashira too valuable to use as his personal protection. Shinobu adds that none of the other family heads of the Ubuyashiki family has ever had bodyguards, which concerns the other Hashira. The Hashira race through the forest, led by their Kasugai crows. In the distance, they catch a glimpse of the Ubuyashiki mansion. Sanemi remains hopeful that they can reach it in time, but a tremendous explosion engulfs Kagaya, Amane, and Muzan in flames, destroying the entire mansion. As numerous explosives are detonated, burning the surroundings and enveloping Muzan in anger, he gazes at the Oyakata and his wife in their final moments. The fireball rises high into the sky and is witnessed by the arriving Hashira, causing them all to be horrified. Tanjiro is stunned by the scent of explosives, burning blood and flesh. The explosion throws Muzan back into agony, and he begins to heal himself, regrowing his limbs and cursing Kagaya as he heals. He remembers the Oyakata's last moments, his face curved into a Buddha-like smile even as he took his own life and that of his wife and 2 daughters in a tragic explosion. Despite underestimating the Oyakata, Muzan realizes the extent of his cunning deceit. Muzan regenerates his damaged limbs, hindered further by the numerous makibishi that Kagaya had prepared to increase their lethality and lengthen his healing time. Despite this, Muzan senses the presence of the hashira, who are gathering to his location, knowing that Kagaya has prepared more surprise attacks. Suddenly, glowing red orbs appear and hover around Muzan, and then transform into giant red thorns that pierce his body, pinning him down and completely immobilizing him. Confused, he realizes that the objects are a blood demon art known as flesh seeds. Thinking to himself, he wonders who could be behind this attack. He tries to absorb the thorns to free himself, but is stabbed by something in his stomach. He looks down to see Tamayo standing there and questions her presence. Tamayo reveals that the blood demon art belongs to the man that Muzan transformed in Asakusa. Muzan notices talismans tied to Tamayo, realizing that she had been concealing herself with a blood demon art of concealment. Muzan asks her why she's there, and she reveals the truth. She had a drug that turns demons back into humans, and she had put it inside the thorn Muzan absorbed earlier. She tells him that the drug is perfected, which has changed the situation. And when Muzan pierces his thumb into her head, she tearfully responds that she never wanted to transform into a demon, and that she only wanted to survive her illness. However, Muzan reminds her that she killed many more humans after transforming, insinuating that she enjoyed devouring them as well. Infuriated, Muzan pierces her eye and mocks her, claiming that her grudge against him is misplaced. Tamayo does not deny that she is killed in her desperation, and to atone for her sins, she will die with Muzan, before calling out for Gyome's assistance. Realizing his predicament, Muzan is unable to move and can only watch as Gyome arrives thanks to the hidden talismans from Yushiro. He winds his flail and attacks, releasing the spiked weight, and the force of the blow completely pulverizes Muzan's head. Gyome reflects on his first meeting with Kagaya, when he was 18 and Kagaya was 14. He found it surprising that someone with such a delicate and fragile presence was 4 years younger than him. Kagaya acknowledged that Gyome had been fighting for the sake of others, and assured him that he was not a murderer. Touched by his acknowledgement of his innocence, Gyome knelt down and cried as Kagaya comforted him, remembering that Kagaya had always said what people wanted to hear in the moment, and his solemnity had remained unchanged throughout their countless interactions. During their last meeting, Kagaya predicted Muzan's arrival in 5 days, and when asked about his certainty, he simply replied that it was his intuition. Gyome reflects on Kagaya's extraordinary intuition, known as foresight. The ability to see into the future enabled the Ubuyashiki clan to avoid numerous crises and amass great fortune. Knowing that the others will not agree with his plan, Kagaya asks Gyome to follow his final instruction. Gyome is reluctant but understands, and Kagaya expresses gratitude, hoping that fewer precious demon slayers will lose their lives in the upcoming battle. Tanjiro and the others were about to launch an attack on Muzan when they suddenly found themselves plunged into the sprawling Infinity Castle. Muzan boasts that he will kill every demon slayer present that night. Tanjiro defiantly responds, vowing to hunt Muzan down no matter what it takes.